Today, we're diving into one of the most mysterious and remote places on Earth, Tibet. Known as a land of spiritual seekers and hidden knowledge, Tibet has fascinated the world for centuries. In this video, we'll explore what happens after the death of the Dalai Lama, how his reincarnation is found, and the unusual stories of spies, traditions, and ancient myths that shape the region. Tibet is a harsh and unforgiving land. With little arable land, extreme weather, and mountainous terrain, it may seem inhospitable. Yet, people have lived here for thousands of years, developing a unique culture deeply intertwined with spirituality. The earliest Tibetans adapted to the high-altitude environment through nomadic herding, relying on their livestock to survive the thin air and barren plains. Before the arrival of Buddhism, there was no written language in Tibet, and its society was tribal, with clans and local leaders. Their religion was a mix of animism and shamanism, deeply connected to natural forces. That changed in the 6th century when King Songtsen Gampo introduced Buddhism to the region. His marriage alliances with Nepal and China helped bring Buddhist teachings to Tibet, marking a turning point in the region's spiritual history. Under the feudal system, land was the primary resource, owned by local aristocrats and monastic estates. Education was largely in the hands of Buddhist monasteries, and Tibetan remained the dominant language. The 10th century saw increased foreign involvement, as Britain and Russia competed for influence in Central Asia. Russia sent explorers, while Britain eventually invaded Tibet, leading to bloody conflicts. Despite a brief period of independence in the early 20th century, Tibet was annexed by Communist China in 1950. In 1951, an agreement was signed that made Tibet part of the People's Republic of China. The Dalai Lama fled to India in 1959, where the Tibetan government in exile still operates. After the Chinese occupation, mass repressions and cultural erasure began. Monasteries were closed, statues were destroyed or smuggled out, and protests, including the self-immolation of monks, shook the region. Today, most Tibetans live in rural areas, herding yaks or working the land. Major cities have expanded thanks to Chinese investment, but many urban jobs are held by ethnic Chinese migrants. This demographic shift is part of a broader campaign to integrate Tibet more tightly into the Chinese state. Tibetan Buddhism remains a powerful force. It absorbed early shamanic rituals, leading to unique ceremonies like the Cham dance, which aims to protect followers from evil spirits. The transmission of spiritual leadership through reincarnation is central to the faith, especially in the case of the Dalai Lama, considered the human embodiment of the bodhisattva of compassion. The first Dalai Lama lived in the 14th century, though he was only recognized as such posthumously. Today, there have been 14 recognized incarnations. When a Dalai Lama dies, monks embalm the body and observe the position of the head to determine the direction in which to search for his reincarnation. The child is identified through visions, instructions left behind, and recognition of objects from a past life. The current Dalai Lama was enthroned in 1940 and fled to India in 1959. In 2011, he gave up political power, passing that role to an elected secular leader. His Nobel Peace Prize-winning vision of demilitarization remains symbolic, though unrealized. However, China has sought to control the selection of future Dalai Lamas. In 2007, China declared that any reincarnation without government approval would be illegal, effectively attempting to nationalize a centuries-old spiritual tradition. This has led to international tension. A striking example was the disappearance of the 11th Panchen Lama, the second most important figure in Tibetan Buddhism, who vanished after being recognized by the Dalai Lama. China appointed its own Panchen Lama, but he remains unrecognized by the Tibetan community. One of Tibet's most iconic symbols is the Potala Palace in Lhasa. Built in the 17th century atop an earlier structure from the 7th century, it sits 3,700 meters above sea level and houses over 1,000 rooms. The palace was a spiritual and political center for centuries and remains a major pilgrimage site, even after the Dalai Lama's exile. In 2020, paleogeneticists discovered Denisovan DNA in Baishia Cave on the Tibetan plateau. This confirms that Denisovans, an extinct species of ancient humans, lived in Tibet around 45,000 years ago. They likely developed genetic adaptations to high altitudes, which are now found in many modern Tibetans. One such gene, EPAS1, allows their blood to absorb more oxygen, explaining why Tibetans can thrive at elevations that cause altitude sickness in others. Tibet remained closed to foreigners well into the 20th century. Photography was considered dangerous, even soul-stealing. In the early 1900s, Russian explorers managed to secretly photograph sacred Tibetan sites. Using clever disguises and hidden cameras, they captured over 200 images, which were later sent to National Geographic. These became the first photo spread in the magazine's history and transformed it into the iconic publication we know today. Among the snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas, stories of the Yeti, also known as the abominable snowman, have long fascinated travelers. Though expeditions have searched for evidence, DNA analysis of supposed Yeti samples revealed they belonged to local animals, mainly Himalayan bears. Ironically, this helped scientists understand the evolution and conservation needs of endangered bear species. One unique tradition in Tibet is polyandry, where one woman marries multiple men, often brothers. This practice helps preserve family land and reduces the economic burden of multiple marriages. While illegal under Chinese law, it remains common in remote villages. The eldest brother typically takes the lead in the family, while all men consider themselves fathers to any children born. Finally, we arrive at one of the most enduring myths of the region, Shambhala. Described in Buddhist and Hindu texts, Shambhala is a hidden land of peace and enlightenment. Some believe it lies in the Himalayas, others think it exists in another dimension. The myth has inspired countless expeditions, including those by early Soviet agents and even Nazi occultists. Artists and thinkers like Russian painter Nicholas Roerich were captivated by the idea, promoting it as a beacon of wisdom and spiritual evolution. Whether or not Shambhala exists, the legend reflects a universal desire for deeper understanding and inner peace. Tibet, with its unique blend of history, mysticism, and resilience, continues to inspire those searching for something beyond the material world.